Just waiting for it to start recording. All right, three, two, and one. Happy Father's Day, everyone, and welcome into a special Gamecock Central interview. We are joined today by head football coach of your South Carolina Gamecocks, Shane Beamer, and his father, legendary football coach, Frank Beamer. The Beamer boys on. Guys, appreciate you taking the time.
Definitely.
Yeah, great being with you.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, Mike.
No, absolutely. And, as we tape this on a Friday, once again, Shane, happy anniversary for you and Emily. And I think we should start it off right there, right? I mean, I want to make sure that we don't upset the mothers and the wives. And I think when you talk about a football coach, that is a critical part of being a successful coach, right? You think back to obviously your mother, Shane, Frank, your wife, Cheryl, and just how important that was to be able to have the coaching career that you had. You guys just elaborate a little bit on the importance of being able to have a strong football wife that understands the intricacies and the ins and outs of everything that you guys have to do.
Yeah. Are you talking to me?
Both
Yep.
of us. Go ahead.
Lead it off, Frank.
Oh, yeah. Cheryl, just a wonderful mother, a wonderful wife, someone that I could talk with. Sometimes you just need someone other than your coaches and other than people around you to talk with and maybe solve a problem, solve an issue. And she was just perfect for that. And I know Emily's great about that also. So we're both very fortunate that we had that person in our life.
Yeah, absolutely. I was fortunate to see that firsthand with my mom and all the things she did for my sister and I growing up, and to support dad, and blessed to have Emily now for all the things that she does, and then the same reasons my dad just said, to have somebody to talk to, and somebody outside this building. You need that person, and I love being able to go home and bounce ideas off of her, talk to her. She's my biggest fan, super defensive of me, for sure. But there's so much on her plate because there's so many time demands because of this job. So she's, mother to 3 children and dealing with me and carpool person and everything. But she's fantastic. And Dad and I both are fortunate to have awesome ladies in our lives.
Yeah.
And I started there with the wives because we talk about Father's Day and just being able to obviously be a great coach, but at the same time too, and more importantly, be a great man and be a great husband for your wives. Shane, it's no secret that you're very family oriented. We see it with your 3 children. We see them around the facility all the time, just how open you are with them. When you look back to how your father went about things when he was at Virginia Tech, and even if you remember those Murray State days, what do you remember when you were younger, just how he made sure to find a way to balance? Because it's not easy, especially when you continue to climb the ladder in coaching football.
Yeah, no, it's not. But, he and my mom always talked about this, and they're right. And I use it the same thing you say the same thing with my children as well, that we're, the profession that we're in right now allows my children to be able to experience a lot of things that other kids don't get to. Now, on the other end of that, there's some sacrifices, that come up and things you have to sacrifice at times, time and things like that. But there's some great things that my children get to experience. And I was no different. I mean, I can remember being at Murray State and having a birthday party on the practice field at Murray State during spring practice, and being able to grow up around the locker room like you did, Mike, with your dad being a coach, and hang around the players and things like that. As we sit here and tape this interview, Hunter, my son, he's been at the facility since early this morning and is running around, and who knows where. He's in the locker room, players lounge, training room. There's no telling, practice field. So they love being able to experience it. And I want to, allow them to experience the things, that my job allows them to do, and be in the locker room after the games and be on the field. And not just my kids, but all of our coaches' kids. And I don't want the wives of our coaches to ever resent the fact that their husbands coach and and are away from home a lot. I want them to feel welcome here and be something that their families can experience as well.
And it's extremely beneficial being able to have a father that went through it. I mean, we talk about the things that you were able to learn from him, and that's a question that you get asked a lot, more so probably about the X's and O's than anything else. You know, what did your father teach you? What has helped you get to this point? But when you talk about that balance, something that gets overlooked so much, Frank, for you, when did things start to maybe click? You know, was there ever a time in your coaching career, especially when you did have Shane and you started to have children, that you had to maybe take a step back and figure out, okay, how do I balance this? And do you ever look back at times wondering, okay, because of how I went about things, did you have to talk with Shane saying, hey, maybe, you know, I don't have regrets necessarily, but maybe I would have changed things up just a little bit earlier on in my career?
Yeah, I can tell you, Shane's a lot better at that than I probably was. Uh, you know, I didn't realize probably part of the time you were so driven to be successful and to prove that you could be a good coach that sometimes you put other things aside. And I think Shane's a lot better at handling that situation than I was. But I think again it kind of goes back to Cheryl and she was always the one that could kind of keep me balanced and tell me when I should be doing something else that I wasn't doing, whatever. So she kind of kept me in line.
What are some of those early memories that you do have going back to those Murray State days when you had Shane running around? You know, it's funny because, you know, Shane brings it up as a child of a football coach. You might have memories that they don't even recall, right? I mean, it could be just running in and out of the locker room and one of the players throws you a tape ball, right? Or just something like so small like that you just remember, it just stands out with you. For you though, Frank, it might not even necessarily be a moment that you've shared with Shane. Is there anything in particular early on in your coaching career when he was just running around as a little rugrat that you remember?
Well, I do remember one time with shooting when he was handling my cord. When he used to have cords that went to your telephone or your phone uh, hookup, and we played a game, and we got home that afternoon. And Shane was telling his mom something that happened on the sideline, and it was some words said that probably shouldn't have been said. Da da da. And so we decided right then what happens on the sideline stays on the sideline. So, but he's always been right into it. From the time that we had a little area out behind our house and he was up on the patio of our house calling down to that area to his sister and her friends playing, had a little radio there that he was radioing down. So I think he was born to be a coach and knew that at an early age.
Do you recall anything, Shane?
Yeah, all that. Certainly those were fun days. The house we grew up in Blacksburg had a deck, like he's talking about, and big field behind our house. So I would recruit my sister and her friends, and we would coach them. And I'd call down on the little Fisher Price headset down to the field that another one of my friends was wearing to like relay the plays in. So that was my first taste of it, and just all kinds of just memories. Being able to be around, and Dad says that he feels like, I'm better at that. And maybe he wasn't as good, but I never once felt slighted growing up or ever felt like we took a back seat, to anything, because I was always able to go to his office and be around, and always go to the locker room and be around. And when I got old enough, was able to be on the sidelines and whatnot, and travel to away games. So those are a lot of my memories. I mean, just being able to, as a little kid, whether we were at Murray State and riding the bus, to all the Ohio Valley Conference, schools like Eastern Kentucky and Austin P and Middle Tennessee at the time, and Southeast Missouri and places like that. Those were fun experiences. And then when he took the Virginia Tech job, I was 10 or had just turned 10. And then being able to go places like South Carolina and ride the bus and experience things like that, coming into Williams-Brice Stadium the first time as a 10-year-old, just all the things that memories like that, maybe not one specific thing, but just a bunch of memories of all the things I got to experience because of his job.
Do you remember the 8-hour drive to bus ride to Morehead State?
I think I was smart enough to never do the Moorhead trip. I knew that was way too far. The
I
bus.
told you, you had it figured out.
Yeah.
It wasn't all luxury back in the day. You had to take those bus rides, those long bus rides.
Yeah, he'll tell you the story, Mike, of how they were coming back, I think, from Moorhead State when he was coaching at Murray, and they didn't have the post-game meal ready. So he and the coaches literally went into the Kentucky Fried Chicken or McDonald's or whatever it was and started boxing the food up for the players so they could have something to eat on the way back.
Yeah, we still had 7 hours to go.
There you go. You had plenty of it. Frank, when you knowing the demand that it takes when you are a head football coach, and not just a head football coach, it could be an assistant coach for that matter. I think it's something that when people, and obviously Shane can relate, when you're coming up, people don't realize it's not as glamorous as you think, right? I mean, there could be moments where you guys experienced, could be 3-4 GAs living basically on mattresses and out of a duffel bag, right? Trying to figure out where the cheapest dollar slice pizza is or the cheapest beer just to be able to get by off of the whatever type of money that you're making. When Shane came to you and told you that he wanted to coach, I'm sure there was a proud moment, but at the same time too, was there ever a moment that you looked at him and said, is this what you really want to do? Just knowing how difficult it is to be able to get up and climb the ranks.
No, my actual words were, "Are you nuts? You lived in this house all these years and you still want to be a football coach?" But no, like I said, I think he knew early on what he wanted to do, and he's good at it. He's really studied. He's been with a lot of good people. He always took notes. I think he knew exactly how he wanted to handle things when he became a head football coach, and he's really very good at it. Very good at it.
Shane, for you, before you even got into coaching, how much did it help you having played for your father? Because I'm sure when you came in, there's notions, I'm sure, whether it be the student body, people on the outside, maybe even some teammates, they look at you and be like, "Oh, that's Frank's kid. He's going to throw him a bone." But I mean, and Frank, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you told me this story when we met last fall that you remember when Shane was taking reps as a long snapper, you would make him do 100 snaps and he had to do them perfect. And if he made one mistake, he'd have to do them all over again. So I bring that up, Shane, because how long did it take you to be able to not worry about that? Because even as a kid, even maybe in high school, people know who your father is. It's the head football coach of Virginia Tech. How long did it take you to be able to push that to the side and just say, "Hey, I got to make my own path and I'm going to be able to just, be myself"?
Yeah, certainly that was important to me to make my own name. And I could have finished up college and gone to be a graduate assistant at Virginia Tech, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go and learn from other people and things like that. And that's what I was able to do. So, I mean, even in our house in Columbia, I've still got a pile of letters that I wrote coaches asking, keep me in mind to be a graduate assistant one day. And I got letters written back from Bobby Bowden to, Mac Brown to whoever, back then during the day. And then when I went out, I was very cognizant of that, especially early on as a graduate assistant, because I'm aware, and Dad and I talked about it. My last name, I'm not naive. It would help me get in the door with some places. But if I didn't do a good job, I didn't care who my dad was. They weren't going to keep me around. So really, I would say the biggest time of it was when I first got into it as a graduate assistant, when you're trying to establish yourself at Georgia Tech way back in 2000, then at Tennessee as a graduate assistant for 2001, 2, and 3. I was very aware of it because, you're still young and you're trying to make your own name. And then I got hired at Mississippi State in 2004 full time. But even then I felt like I had to prove that I could do the job and that I had the job, not just because of my last name. So even now today, I'm going into my 23rd year in coaching coming up, and I'm the head coach at an SEC school. And there's still a part of me that is still driven by that too, because I never want anybody to say, okay, well, the only reason he's got the job at South Carolina is because his dad is a Hall of Fame coach, or the only reason he got it was because his dad was Frank Beamer, is Frank Beamer. And not that that's true, but I don't know. I'm just kind of wired. I'm a little weird in the sense that maybe I still try and tell myself that people are saying that to drive me even more.
Frank, for you, did you feel like at times you may have been a little harder on Shane, or may have pushed him a little bit more? I mean, I know the simple answer is going to be like, oh, we treated him just like everyone else. But maybe subconsciously you wanted to just push him a little bit more because you knew maybe, especially when he first arrived there, people might just look at him a little bit different.
I think Shane made that easy, in that he didn't want to be treated differently. He wanted to be treated like everyone else. And I knew that. He knew that. And that's what I tried to do. I didn't try to go overboard one way or the other, or not do. I wanted to treat them all the same. And for, you always say everybody on your team, you want to do that. And I tried very hard to do that.
What has been your favorite part about just seeing Shane grow, not just as a football coach, but just as a man, knowing that when he was coming up through the ranks, like he alluded to, could have been real easy just to, okay, I'm a Beamer and this and that, but he's proven himself and he's been able to make a name and obviously do very well in year one at South Carolina. Picked up an award last year for what he was able to do, and just being able to see him now run his own program as a head coach.
Well, I enjoy seeing him be a great father. Emily and the 3 kids, what a great family that is. And so I enjoy that part of it. How he is around the kids, I think he certainly has their, and I'm talking about players now, has their respect, but he's probably a little more out there than I was. But I think that's a plus too. So just watch him day to day, how he handles family, players, people around him, coaches. Like I said, I'm very, very proud of this guy, and think he does a great job.
Shane, for you to be able to see how it's like now to be as a head coach, when you look back to some of the advice that your father gave you going into this, what's maybe 1 or 2 things that really stand out that you think might be the best advice that he has given you when it comes to coaching?
Yeah, I kind of go back, all the things that he and my mom raised my sister on, just principles of treating people the right way and whatnot. And I wouldn't say, Mike, it's specifically any coaching advice he gave me. It's really just all the things that I was raised, the values we were raised on, my sister and I. And now that I'm in this chair as a head football coach, there's just so much that I already know, if that makes sense, where I don't have to remember exact things of advice that he gave me or specific things that he told me. It's more just how he lives and how he handled everything as a head coach that I take from and try to be like I already alluded to, the way he treats people and the way he treated his coaching staff and the way he treated his players and the way he just treated people in public, the fans that came up to him and whatnot. He said this a million times, and I use it all the time, but just his consistency day in, day out, and never getting too high or too low, and coming back every week. It's a new week during the season, and then there's good and bad that's going to happen throughout the year, but just not being like on an emotional roller coaster every single week because of what happened. And I try and do a good job of that. I'm proud of the fact that last season, after we started 2-2, we never lost more than 2 games in a row. If we lost a game, we always came back and won the next week. And we've got to be more consistent by when we win a game. Now we need to win more than 1 in a row. We got to build on that. But just that consistency of not getting too high, too low. And then, like I said, how he handled the people in his program are probably the two biggest things that I've taken from him. That if you spent time in our facility and around our program, you would say that's very much like what the way that he did things.
Shane, I know he's not the toughest critic on you. I know Hunter is. I mean, shoot, go back to last year. Hunter told you not to get fired. He told you who you should have hired. Should have hired Nick Saban. Why'd you run the ball? Against ECU in that last drive.
Yep.
But when you think back to being the son of a coach, I think some people assume, okay, if I'm getting back in the car, he might tear me a new one. Or, when he's in the stands, because he knows so much football knowledge, he might be yelling stuff down the field. And what was that like, though? Because I'm sure it was the complete opposite, because that's just the notion and the perception that so many people have. But when he went to your youth games or high school games, I'm sure it was the complete opposite.
Yeah, very much so. Would hardly know. He was there as dad, and not as coach. And certainly you're super proud when he's in the stands and he is there watching you. Took on an extra meeting for sure to have him and my mom there. And then now, even with Hunter, I mean, I don't try and critique, any sport that he plays organized when I go and watch him play, or my two daughters, same things. I mean, I know what it's like to be a coach as well, and I'm not going to sit up there and yell and draw attention to myself and try and tell another coach how to do things as well. The biggest thing that I talk to Hunter about is just competing and playing hard and playing the right way. But my dad's competitive. I'm really competitive, but Hunter is on like a whole different level when it comes to the competitiveness as well. I mean, we're working through that phase right now, Mike, because if we lose in anything, a flag football game, or he was in the, as he likes to call it, the Shane Beamer football camp. If anybody asked him, he was there in camp this week, and it's a major event if he loses. So we're working through that right now. I don't want him to lose the competitive spirit, but we got to handle winning and losing the right way right now.
I'm trying to do the math in my head, and I don't know if it could be any recruiting violations, but could you see Hunter perhaps playing for you down the road? Because you obviously had the opportunity to play for your son. And if he did, how difficult might it be to recruit him? Because he seems like he might be a tough cookie.
He is a tough cookie. He kind of knows what he wants, and he's smarter. He's smarter than I was. At his age for sure. He knows what's going on, and I told him he's downstairs right now. I told you earlier that he's out running around, and as we tape this, we've got a 7-on-7 camp that's going on. So there's a couple of games going on outside, and I told him he could come in and see. We call my dad Da. So I told him he could come in here and see Dad, and he didn't want any part of it. He wanted to stay out there and watch the games. But he loves football. He loves watching it. He loves competing. He's a decent little athlete, so we'll see. It would be tough to get him here if we did have to recruit him for sure, but he's got some athletic ability. We'll see how it continues to go. But, I just want him to continue to be a good kid and respectful, and then we'll see what happens.
Frank, you were able to achieve so much in your coaching career, but being able to have the opportunity to coach your son, what was that moment like, especially having the opportunity to see him a little bit more than you would have if he had gone to a different school?
Oh, it was neat, and to go play for a national championship while he was here. I mean, those are memories that are with you forever, and the level that you were playing on. I mean, coaching on and playing on. Those we always have those. So as you can tell, I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of the way he coaches, handles himself. I think he's like I said earlier, he studied. He knew exactly what he wanted to be, how he wanted to do things, and that's good when you start out with a plan and then you've got a direction to go, and I think Shane's always had that.
Now, as we wrap things up, one last question. And since it's Father's Day, I don't typically like to surprise coaches, because I know coaches don't like surprises. They want to be in control. They want to know what's going on and everything. I understand that. So I pray to God I'm not going to regret this later. But since it is Father's Day, going to hop on my dad, Paul Uva. I know you got the chance to meet him, Shane.
Hey,
He's
Coach,
listening.
how you doing, Coach Frank, Coach Shane?
Yeah, he's Coach Beamer. There's only one real Coach Beamer. So
And for my father, I know you know this, Shane. He had the opportunities to go to the coaching conventions back in the day, be able to see your father Frank throughout the countries. And I mean, shoot, Shane, we've talked about it before. The Beamer books, the special teams books that my father has, and him being in the basement. And he actually has some kickoff returns called Virginia Tech that he's been able to break, Frank. So hopefully they'll be able to do that again this year. But Dad, you got a question? Don't make me regret this.
Yeah, no, I'm well prepared. First of all, Coach, happy Father's Day. It's an honor to speak to both of you, especially at the same time.
Thank you.
Coach Frank, I remember seeing you down in Hartford back in the day talking about special teams, and that was just an awesome experience being able to sit and listen to you talk about the intricacies of kickoff and kickoff returns and blocking punts and all that stuff, and that was great. Coach Shane, thank you again for a great time when we came down to visit. Your hospitality was just second to none, and my wife and I really appreciate it. But Coach Shane, first I'll talk. Playing for your dad at Virginia Tech, definitely is a very special memory. But were there times when you overheard players criticize your dad about play calling, game plans, personnel issues? If so, how did you handle that as a player and as a son of a head coach?
When I was playing for him?
Yes.
I know it's tough to understand with that thick Boston accent.
Yep. No, that's a great point. Great question. And thanks, Coach, for saying that as well. It was great having you down here when you were here as well. And I know you're extremely proud of Mike and his success and as well. And he's a star in this world as well. So I know you're proud of him. But no, not really. I'm sure there was. I mean, it happens, but I don't really remember hearing much. I mean, certainly, when you're playing for him, there's teammates that, like any player is going to have, he's got frustrations and things like that. But I don't really remember anything specifically or anything. And it was never personal. Shoot, there may have been times I was complaining about him too at the same time with some of those other guys as well. But, and if there was, I just kind of realized, it would worry about what you can control. And for me, it was trying to be the best player that I could be and not focus on anything else. And growing up too, because you guys remember this. I mean, Virginia Tech growing up is not what Virginia Tech was when I got to college and when Dad finished his career. I mean, my freshman year in high school, Tech won 5 games. My sophomore year in high school, Virginia Tech won 2 games. So that was certainly you heard criticisms and things like that in school. But I just kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier before you got on, Coach, is just think back and remember all the positives that come out of being in this world as the son of a coach. And sure, there's going to be some negatives, if you will, but the positives far outweigh any negatives or criticism that you may hear.
Okay, great. I know I'm probably leading towards this question too, is it sounds more negative, but see, all the stuff I've heard, all the positive, awesome experiences are things that I was able to share with Mike and his brother as a coach up here in Massachusetts. And so I definitely lived through a lot of the things that both of you have gone through. But Coach Frank, as a parent, how did you handle the times when things maybe got a little rough and you may have read stuff or may have heard stuff that really, it just kind of rubbed you the wrong way. But as a parent, it's real hard to maybe not say stuff because those are real life situations. The game just didn't go the way it did. And next thing you know, and obviously at a higher level of the SEC, reading and radio stations and all the types of things that go on, promoting and also critiquing games. So how did you deal with that as a dad?
I remember very clearly coming home and my daughter Casey was crying and asked her why she crying, and someone had said something about her dad or not being a good coach. She'd overheard it somewhere, and so I went in and sat her down and said, "Look, sometimes in this business you're down here, sometimes in this business you're up here, but your dad is a good coach, and it's going to turn around. And I think always believing in myself and believing in positive things is part of how I looked at things, and that's to me that was reality. And as long as you stay in reality, then you're on the right path.
Great. Thank you, Coach.
Well, I know Shane's got to get going. He has to go hand out a 7-on-7 trophy. And, by the time this interview drops on Sunday, there might be another like 6 welcome homes. I mean, I don't know. But no, we appreciate the Beamers, Shane, Frank. Appreciate you guys taking the time. Dad, love you. Appreciate you hopping on.
And I'm gonna go watch. I'm gonna go sit and watch the U.S. Open now.
And for all the fathers out there, for all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. And we'll see you in a couple more Saturdays. Football is right around the corner. Football will be returning to Williams-Brice. Guys, thank you once again.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Happy Father's Day,
guys.
Thank you. Same to you.